Okay, here we go.
There we go.
Hello and welcome to our Ontario network of CAPC and CPNP projects, one of our network webinars. And today we are going to hear a presentation from Tina Etzl, who I'll hand things over to shortly. She's going to talk about self-regulation, and just really excited to hear what she has to say. As we begin our time together today, I would like to take some time to give gratitude and thanks to the land and to those who have been the traditional keepers and stewards. We are coming together as a network of CAPC and CPNP projects from all across this region of Ontario. And at our gatherings, we affirm our network acknowledges and gives thanks to the First Peoples of the territories where we work and where we serve. Gratitude for sharing the land for us to continue that work. And so with that, I would like to welcome Tina Etzl. Hi, Tina.
Hello.
And I'm going to hand things over to you, but as you know,
Great.
I'm here if you need me. And
okay.
Just as everybody knows, we are recording this, so you're welcome to leave your cameras on if you're okay with that. These recordings do get shared with our network members across Ontario. So over to you, Tina.
Great. Well, I'm here to talk to you today about self-regulation. I chose this beautiful background because gardening and nature are very self-regulating. So I thought that might help us with visuals to maybe take a deep breath and calm a little bit. I've got to move this over. Here's our agenda. So we'll talk a little bit about what all of your goals are. The overall theme is there's no such thing as a bad kid. Self-reg is a valuable tool for the early years. I'm going to tell you the story of an immigrant child. We'll talk about the 5 steps of early years and the 5 steps of self-reg, actually, sorry. How to reframe the behavior, what the difference is between self-control and self-regulation, and finally, how we're going to put all of this into practice.
That's awesome. Tina, I apologize for the interruption.
That's okay.
I forgot to mention to invite people to, if they have questions, to put them in the chat.
Oh,
and
yes,
that I'll
definitely.
be watching that, and I'll let you know if some questions do come up.
Okay.
Okay.
So
thanks.
A little bit about myself. I wrote this in third person, but I can never say it in third person. So I earned my diploma in ECE way back in 1996. And I also earned my Bachelor of Arts in 2006. I've spent the last 13 years working frontline childcare, mostly with toddlers. I'm now a project director with Ready, Set, Go in Windsor. But when I was in childcare, I noticed that children, once upset, they just weren't able to return to a state of calm. I decided to investigate self-regulation to see if it would help the children. What started off as a curiosity to help a few children has become a journey of self-discovery and pedagogical transformation. Having completed the foundations of Self-Reg certificate, I'm proud to be a Self-Reg champion. So all the material that I am using today, you can find it on the website. It is selfreg.ca with a little dash in between self and reg. It's there, and it's on most of the slides. So Stuart Shanker is the head honcho there, and he is very gracious to allow me to share this with you. Oops. So goals. Do you guys have any goals? What is it that you would like to learn how to do? You're welcome to put it in the chat or to just say it out loud. If you have any thoughts or anything in particular that you would like to learn about.
I guess for me, this is Sydney, Tina.
Yep.
I'm really appreciating an opportunity to just be refreshed and sort of have an overview of what is this whole idea of self-regulation. So really appreciating this opportunity to hear from you.
Great, thank you. Well, what Stuart Shanker teaches is not the I can't think of what it is they're using in the school board, but it's like the steps of Self-Reg and they have different colors. He really thinks that that is the next step to learning after they have learned a little bit about how they feel inside and what Self-Reg looks like for them. So I won't talk at all about the other program because I don't know anything about it, but I will share with you what Stuart has to say. Oh, and I'm also curious to know. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, there was somebody, Kim shared in the chat that she had a hope of learning of zones of regulation.
Yeah, that is what I don't know anything about.
Okay, so that will be for another time.
That's what they teach in the school, right, Tina?
Oh,
Zones of
okay.
regulation.
Yeah.
That's why I put it. Yeah.
Thank you. Stuart's not a huge fan of zone of regulations until they get grade 2, grade 3, grade 4-ish, I think. Just because you have to have more of a cognitive understanding of feelings and how other people feel. And so that's his feeling. Maybe it works for other people, I'm not sure. But this is what works for me, especially working with children who are nonverbal. So under the age of 3. So I'm wondering, in what areas do you practice? Do you have a lot of children? Do you have a lot of immigrants? What kind of background are people coming from when you see them?
You know, could we ask people if they do want to, they could raise their hands, perhaps?
Absolutely.
Want to unmute, or feel free to type in the chat, and I'll keep an eye on to see if anybody raises their hand and wants to make a comment.
Great. Oh, Halmia.
Hi there, I'm Halima. I'm program manager for CAPC program, and we mostly work with immigrant families, and definitely a lot of the immigrant parent, because they go through transitioning, coming to this new country and needed to make adjustment. And then there is so many areas of their life that they need to focus on: housing, finance, and meeting basic needs of their kids. They're not really aware and understanding of the children behavior, feeling, or how to acknowledge, how to work, or what, especially about self-regulation.
Or even just realizing that kids have stress.
Exactly. That's something that most of the time the home visitors are bringing back and talking about it.
Okay. And then in the chat, we have traumatized First Nation children and families with intergenerational trauma. So I do know a little bit about trauma-informed care. And this does go hand in hand with trauma-informed care. So that's it can be very helpful in that area as well. Let's see here. So here's his quote: "There's no such thing as a bad kid." And it took me a while, but I finally got there too. So children have such difficult ways of responding to being overstressed. Some get physically ill. That was me. Every Christmas that I can remember, I'm on the couch, not going to school, very ill. Why? I don't know. I was a little child, but maybe because I was nervous and anxious. Christmas is a big deal in my family. It's a big production. And so it's something that we all look forward to. And I just could not deal with it. I still can't. Some become manic and hyperactive. Some have trouble going to sleep. Others don't want to do anything but sleep. Some won't say a word. Others won't stop talking. Some become emotionally volatile, and some shut down. Some get super clingy, and others, become distant. Some can't focus on anything, and others have problems with hyperfocus. Some kids can get very angry and aggressive. What all these children have in common is that they behave in a characteristic way when they are overstressed. This becomes a sort of pattern response. But what markedly distinguishes them distinguishes between them is how we react. And I also want to point out here that a lot of these symptoms are also typical neurodivergent signs. So autism and ADHD, because it all has to do with brain chemistry. So seeing children suffer brings out the nurturing side in all of us. There may be an exception for a child who responds to their distress by becoming angry or aggressive. They're the one that we see as having a character problem, the one who is yelled at, punished, restrained, and shunned, the one we automatically react harshly to. And I know my coworkers would often say things like, oh, that parent must let him get away with everything, or I'd like to be a fly on the wall in that house, or that child would never behave that way if I was his parent. But it's important that we ask a question, why or why now, when they lash out. So how can asking why or why now help us see a child differently? I'm wondering if any of you have some ideas about that.
Can I say?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I believe when you ask the question, why now, that make you pay attention to what changed, what is currently happening different than any other time.
Right.
So you will start feeling like you will start getting close to the solution.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And also, why is this child behaving like this? So no child wants to be the bad child. So Laura's right. They are communicating with us. Behavior is a form of communication, and it's our job to figure out what it is they're trying to tell us. So the bad kid is the one who gets labeled as having some personality flaw. They're the ones who are said to have a low frustration tolerance, to be unfeeling or oppositional. They're the ones who are seen as having poor self-control, a lack of empathy, no sense of right or wrong. Just hearing a child labeled with one of these terms is enough to determine how you will always see that child. I hate it when I go into a room for the first time and a staff says to me, oh, watch out for Billy, he's the bad one, or he's the one that just can't handle anything. The worst part about all of this is not that it completely misses the mark. It is that it often brings out the very thing you dread. Treat a kid as if they're bad, and before you know it, they'll start to see themselves this way. They'll be the first one to write themselves off, the first to be upset by behavior that they no more understand than you do. They'll see all adults as threats, and before you know it, they're behaving the very ways they've been told they're likely to behave. So I want to tell you about a little boy that I have at the drop-in right now. He's the boy, he's the middle child, older sibling was just involved in a major accident, and he's not getting a whole lot of attention at home. And so he started to act out as a result of his needs not being met. But after a while, he learned that if he continued to act a certain way, he would continue to get his needs met. So it went from being a stress behavior to being a learned behavior. And Stuart Shanker tells us about these pathways that we have in our heads. There are these neural pathways that, especially when we're little, are just being developed. And the more something happens to a child and things are repetitive, the deeper that connection gets. And then as the child learns that these stress behaviors actually work and he gets what he wants, it becomes a habit and it becomes very much ingrained in their neurology. And then it becomes very difficult to change that pattern. It's almost like the bike path along a dirt road. As more and more bikes go along that way, the rut gets in there and it becomes the path that everyone takes because it's the easiest, and it's harder to make a different path. So if we recognize the difference between misbehavior and stress behavior, it is the first step to helping a child who is subject to angry explosions or aggression. Like all children, they need to feel safe and secure, but that's not going to happen until we realize there's no such thing as a bad kid. So in my mind, the big difference between misbehavior and stress behavior, is that things start off as stress behavior. Well, I don't know. There we go. So our little guy, he'll throw Play-Doh to get attention. And it started off as a stress behavior. He wanted attention. He couldn't figure out how to get it. He doesn't speak English, so it was very hard for him to get it from us. When he came to the staff, he would pull on us or hit us, and that would not result in a positive outcome for him. And so he learned that if he threw Play-Doh, that the staff would pick it up and then they would engage with him to show him how to play with Play-Doh. So it started off as something he was doing because he was stressed. But then when he learned that it works, it became misbehavior. Does that make sense? It became a tool in his toolbox. Whereas if we recognized it as stress behavior in the beginning, we could have dealt with it easier, helped to reduce the stressors more, and he may not have learned that it's a behavior that can work for him. So self-regulation is a very valuable tool for the early years. You know, I'm a little bit biased as an early child educator, but I really feel like if we can get families on board and early child education, anyone who works with young children on board with this, it can really help with the future. Because children, you know, if from 0 to 5, they learn, they co-regulate with us and they learn how to recognize their body signals, maybe we won't see such behavior in the later years. So the Schenker Self-Reg is a process for enhancing self-regulation by understanding and dealing with stress. So it's not a magic, do these 5 steps and everything will be fine. It is a process. In Self-Reg, we consider both our response to stress and how stress affects our ability to maintain our own healthy energy and tension balance. So if you are super stressed and you're trying to deal with a child who is super stressed, it may not work very well. You may need to make and arrange a situation where the child is removed in a safe place and you take a moment to calm yourself before you go approach this child. Self-Reg looks at stress across 5 domains: the biological, the emotional, cognitive, social, and pro-social. Heightened stress in any or all of these domains leads to problems in behavior, mood, learning, and overall development. Identifying and reducing children's stressors is the first step towards easing their stress levels and bringing them back to a calm, focused state, and ultimately improving their ability to self-regulate. Young children, infants, toddlers, getting into those 3-year-olds still need us to co-regulate with them because they're not able to do it on their own. So holding them, feeding them, talking with them, using that sing-songy voice, singing songs with them, reassuring them that you're there, responding to their cries and their needs as quickly as you can. And even if you can't run across the room and help that child, you can still say to that child, "Oh, Matthew, I hear you. I hear that you need me, and I will come as soon as I can. I need to finish with this first." And just to know that you have responded to them. And they need you at that young age to help them. So we do call that co-regulation. Yes, so stressors can vary quite a lot from child to child. What is a stressor for one child may not be for another, and what may be a stressor in a child one moment may not be in another when the child is in a different physical or emotional state. So, those mornings when the parent comes in and it's been a horrible morning and they're already upset, and in childcare, they drop the child off like a sack of potatoes and they say, good luck, and they close the door. Yeah, there's a good chance that child's going to have a rough time that day because they've already started off that day having a rough time. So things that maybe wouldn't have bothered them before may bother them more on that day. Common stressors for children in the early years include the child's biology, for example, their sensory and motor system, insufficient sleep, poor diet, high processed foods, lack of physical activity. I have worked with a lot of immigrants at the childcare center that I was at, and they mostly came from warm countries. And we found that from October through till April, they hibernated a lot. So the children on weekends or on days when they were not with us did not get a whole lot of outdoor physical activity. And our families really didn't value indoor physical activity. That just creates mess and gets excitement, and they really didn't want to do that. Stressors in the environment, for example, are too much noise. If you're a little toddler and there's 14 other toddlers in the room, or if you're coming to a drop-in program and there's 39 other people in the room, that can be very overwhelming, especially if they're speaking more than one language. I find personally that, my ears just pick up all these sounds that I'm not used to hearing. And when there are many different languages, I do find it quite overwhelming. Feeling crowded, being in new environments for sure. If it's too cold or too hot in the environment. If their blanket isn't as soft as it usually is. These are things that can really upset them. And difficulty understanding patterns and nonverbal aspects of socialization. So as children get older, some of them start to read our minds, sort of. They read our nonverbal cues, our body language, the way we hold our face when we're angry. And some children don't get it. Not just kids who have autism, but other kids who are neurodivergent. So ADHD is definitely another area where children have trouble understanding nonverbal language. Clinical studies have shown that it is indeed possible to enhance children's self-regulation, and that doing so results in meaningful improvements in all or any of the 5 domains. So it's really exciting to know that there is something we can do. There is something we can do to help children, even if we can't get their parents on board. Some parents will totally go for this idea and will be completely on board and will take your suggestions and will give you suggestions and have great communication about it. Other parents just think this is psychobabble nonsense and they want nothing to do with it. But you can do what you can do when you have the children. And that is how I led my practice. So I did not always work with staff who agreed with my philosophy or with Stuart Shanker's philosophy. And so I would just explain to them that I would deal with children in the way that I felt was best, and I would respect their right to deal with children in the way that they feel is best. It wasn't always easy, but we did make it work. So let's look at the story of an immigrant child. What hidden stressors do you think a child who is new to Canada will face? Well, their stressors come even before they come to Canada. First of all, they're going to notice that their parents are stressed out because, let's face it, moving to a new country is stressful, especially a country that is very different from your own. Perhaps they're already packing things up at home or giving things away, and children are noticing that their favorite clothes, their blankie, their toys have just kind of disappeared. If you can imagine, being put into a car seat and driving to an airport, children have no concept of airports, but they do have concepts of waiting rooms. So perhaps they're thinking they're at a doctor's office and they're waiting to get a shot or something. Then spending hours on a plane where the parents really want them to be quiet. And then they get to Canada and they get stressed parents, new smells, new foods, new languages. Even the air feels different. And even when their parents make the same foods, they may not be able to get the same ingredients, the same brand, the same quality. So even their comfort stuff may taste different. I know myself, when I've traveled to countries that have other languages, even languages I can speak, at the end of 2 or 3 weeks, I am so ready to go home and be in a place where people will understand me. And these children don't ever get to go back. They don't get to go back to normal, because however things were in their home country, it's never going to be like that in Canada. So I'm sure you can imagine how stressful this is. And then to be a very young child who most people don't even recognize are stressed or can have stress, it can be very daunting for them. So what did I do as an early childhood educator? One of the things that I did was I learned their language. I will never be fluent in Arabic, not in a million years, and I will never learn all of the dialects. But I asked the parents over the course of many years to teach me how to say things like, wait, it's okay, thank you, come and see this. No, stop. Those were valuable tools in speaking with these children, because every other time we speak to this child, they don't know what we're trying to tell them. And that must be so frustrating to a child who's already trying to learn receptive language as an infant or a toddler. Parents would tell me, no, we want them to learn English. And I would explain to them that if they are super stressed because they're not understanding anything for 9 hours of the day, they're going to have a hard time learning English. But if I can say a few phrases to them that will make them feel comfortable and help them feel calm, it will open up their ability to learn English and to learn our routine better. And it worked. It was wonderful. As a matter of fact, our children that did not speak Arabic started speaking Arabic. So we had one family who asked us one day what we were teaching the children. And I said, what do you mean? And he says, well, we're Polish. We speak Russian. My child is blonde haired, blue eyed, pale skin. And I think he's speaking Arabic. Are you teaching Arabic? And I said, well, no, we're not actually teaching it, but we are using it because there's so many Arabic children in the room. And he is just picking it up. And Dad was just so over the moon impressed that his little 20-month-old was picking up a second language or a third language just naturally. We did ask parents to bring in blankets from home, and we would send their blanket home. Normally we would do laundry at the daycare, but I wanted them to have a familiar smell in their blankets when they were having rest time. We also were not really too big on stuffies or soft things because of lice and whatnot. But we let go of that, and we did let the children bring in stuffies. We also tried to learn about customs and the way people do things in the countries that our children are coming from. For example, we had children who ate with their hands. And as Canadians, we really want them to use utensils. But if you look at what country they're coming from, that is how some countries eat. They do use their hands. So we would still give them the utensils, but we were much more open to the idea of children using their hands to eat because that was a cultural norm for them. We would make even extra sure that they washed their hands and made sure that their nails were all cleaned and whatnot because they were going to use their hands to eat. We tried to just keep an open mind about what things were familiar with them so that we could incorporate them into our program. And we found overall, it really helped the children to calm. We also asked parents if they could find us a YouTube video of a song that they sing to their child when they're upset. And then we would play it for them at those times when we predicted that they would be upset. And, you know, we can never turn our situation into one that wholly feels like their original home. But we can do our best to make them feel like they're a little bit of home. So here are the Schenker's 5 steps to self-reg. So first we have to reframe the behavior. Instead of looking at it as misbehavior or the child is out to get me, I reframe the behavior into realizing that it's stress behavior and figuring out what the possible causes can be. This sometimes means a conversation with the staff that come in earlier in the day that are around during drop-off, or with the caregivers when they pick up, to recognize what stressors they could be. I made a habit. Our routine was to come in from outside, wash hands, have lunch, go to bed. So I would leave the lights off when we came in, because they're coming from a high energy area and I wanted them to calm. And so by having the lights off, it was a signal to them in their body that they would calm. And I recognized that those flickering lights were a stressor for them. So we would reduce the stressors as much as we could. We would reflect and enhance our stress awareness. So that's just more about learning about things that can cause stress in children that maybe you wouldn't even have thought of before. And then you can restore both your energy and the child's energy. And that doesn't mean that it's rest time and the child's now going to jump up and down on the cot, but it means that they're not using all of their energy to deal with what's upsetting them. So we need to develop personalized strategies to promote resilience and restoration. So we had a little girl in our toddler room, and every time somebody left, she would cry. But she'd been there for 6-7 months, and we really thought that that was unusual, that she really should have kind of gotten used to that by now, because we have a lot of people that come in out of the room all day. So we talked to mom about what happens at home and what is her life like at home. Are there a lot of people who are coming and going? And, you know, it took mom a few days. And then she came back to me and she said, you know what, now that you've mentioned it, she has a teenage sister. There are teenagers coming and going all day long. And they say hi to her and they play with her and then they go do their thing and then they leave. And they don't always say goodbye to her. And then all of a sudden they're gone. So the mom and myself and my coworkers decided that we would make an effort to make sure that we always said goodbye to the child when we left. They did it at home with the teenagers, and we tried it at the child care center. And lo and behold, the getting upset when people left stopped. She just wanted the security of knowing that you were leaving. When she moved from the toddler room to the preschool room, it was also very upsetting for her. So we did something that we don't normally do, and that is we let mom drop her off in the toddler room with me. She would come, she would get a hug, and then she would be walked down to the preschool room. That's all she needed. It took about 2 weeks before she decided she didn't need me anymore, and then she was off to the preschool room. Whereas if we had stuck to our normal policies and said, nope, she's a preschooler now, she needs to go there, I suspect that it would have been a very long time of her crying and being sad before she would have decided that she was okay in the preschool room. A lot of these abilities to reduce stress involved a lot of me getting out of my comfort zone and me encouraging others to get out of the comfort zone of, but that's not how we do things. But if how we do things is not working for the child, then maybe we need to reflect on why we're doing them that way, or another way that we can help the child. This is also a way to reframe the behavior. So Ross Green is a very well-known advisor on behavior, and he says kids will do well if they can. I really struggled with this for a while, but if you look at the two sides here, you've got the idea that kids won't, and then on the other side you have they can't yet. So if kids won't, we're being judgmental. And that's the adult's mindset. But if we think kids can't do it yet, then maybe we can be curious. We can encourage them to be curious. Maybe there's too many stressors. Maybe they don't have the skills yet, especially children who develop verbal skills later. And I also find a lot of children who develop communication skills and verbal skills very early have a hard time reading other people's body language. And also, I've said it, I've communicated it. Why aren't I getting what I asked for? They have a hard time with that as well. If we look under the won't, we see them as being lazy, just wants attention, or being rude. If we look under they can't, we're looking at what's getting in the way. How can I help them? Under won't, we give them rewards for doing well and punishments for not doing well. Under they can't yet, we find and remove the barriers. Under won't, there's frustration, shame, and guilt. And under can't yet, they feel supported and strengthened. Oops. I know it's more than just Stuart Shanker who has said this, but if you see a child differently, you will see a different child. When kids exhibit challenging behaviors, we can be stress detectives and find and remove barriers. We can find the stresses and reduce them. We can find their unmet needs and meet them. And we can find skill deficiencies and teach them. Since we're not the parents, sometimes this is a little bit difficult. So we had these twins once, and when mom dropped them off, they were about 3, but they were so incredibly intelligent and they understood so much. And they always had rough mornings. The older twin always wanted to hold the door, but he was too slow to get to it. And so he wouldn't always get to hold the door. The other twin never wanted to brush his teeth, and he'd lie and say, "Oh no, I'm my brother. I did brush my teeth." And they would come in the morning with mom already mad and with them already stressed, and with both of them sad, and with one not willing to walk through a door because he didn't open it. At the end of the night, as it got closer and closer to the end of the night, the children's behaviors would get more and more off kilter. Just sitting and crying, not really playing with anything, fighting with their brothers, wanting the brother to go away, and then 5 seconds later wanting a hug from the brother. And then when mom picked up, mom would go over with them all the stuff that happened in the morning. Why did you not want to go through the door? Why wouldn't you brush your teeth with me? And she was still thinking on it, and she would bring it up and she would replay the morning over and over and over again. And they would get disciplined for what happened in the morning. We discovered that that was a huge part of their stressors. But mom did not want to change. She wanted her children to change, but she did not want to change. So as educators, we shared information with mom. We shared with her what we were doing at the center that works. And then we did what we could in our environment for the children. And that's all we could do, because mom didn't want to change. And we would talk to mom about the positive behavior changes we were seeing and about how happy her children were. And we would again offer her some tips and some suggestions, all in a friendly, caring, conversational model. But it was just never something that she bought into. Hopefully they were able to learn some skills. Actually, I know they were, because I've run into them. They're probably 14 by now. And they are doing very well. And I do believe that they learned some really important skills from us and were able to put them into place. So I want to look at control versus self-regulation. So let me just stop sharing here. And then I need to bring up that and go to here. Maybe not. there. And then go back to, nope. Not here. Oh, I lost it. Zoom.
Okay.
Okay, here we go.
Hey.
Where is there? Let me make sure I've got the right one up. There we go. Share screen. And it's this one. So this is one of Stuart Shanker's infographics. He really likes them. This is about the difference between self-control and self-reg. And he loves history, so you'll learn about history. So self-reg versus self-control. The practice of self-reg draws a fundamental distinction between self-regulation and self-control. So self-regulation seeks to identify and reduce the causes of problems in mood, thought, and behavior. Self-regulation is always searching for the hidden stressors. Self-control seeks to inhibit or manage such problems only when they arise. Self-control looks only at the surface behaviors. And the origins are a long time ago. The roots of distinction between self-reg and self-control are remarkably ancient and trace all the way back to Hippocrates and Plato. Hippocrates' physicians turned to cupping, diet, exercise, and emetics to restore humoral balance in the blood. Educators and religious authorities worked on character, building to strength and willpower. Since the 20th century, both theories gave birth to a science. Hippocratic methods evolved into physiology, while willpower-based methods evolved to modern-day behaviorism. Physiology looks at neurobiological systems that maintain a balance between energy, expenditure, and restoration. And self-regulation capitalizes on recent advances in the science of stress management. Behaviorism, on the other hand, looks for ways to contain the surface effects of an imbalance. Self-control looks at the age-old methods of punishment and reward to manage behavior. So in the methods, both self-regulation and self-control seek to achieve effortful control, or the ability to voluntarily manage attention and inhibit or activate behaviors in response to external stimuli. So self-reg seeks to reduce the effort required to reach effortful control. Self-regulation is about looking non-judgmentally at one's impulses, worries, and fixations. So what he means by effortful control is when we are in a high stress moment, we put our bodies into fight, flight, or freeze. And those stages take a lot of energy for our bodies. So our bodies actually naturally shut down the parts of our body that are not needed in order to maintain fight, flight, or freeze. And freeze is something I had never really heard of before, but it's something that I do. When I am super stressed, my brain freezes, especially when a superior is asking me a question that I feel like I should know the answer to. My brain freezes and I can't access that information. And I end up answering the question in not the way at all that I want to. And it never works out well. But if we can find ways to help people realize they're stressed, take a deep breath and calm before they answer or before they do that activity, things will work out much better. Whereas self-control encourages battling of weakness to exercise effortful control. Self-control is about being judged by oneself as much as many others. So a lot of people tell me all the time that I am so strong and that people who don't handle stress well are weak. And I really wish that we could eliminate that from the vocabulary, because they look at my strength as being good and someone else's weakness as being bad. But here's the problem. The reason why I am strong is because I have had to battle stressors my whole life. I gained strength through adversity. And I would rather have never had those stressful experiences and be seen as weak than be seen as strong. The only reason why, in my opinion, there are people who have trouble handling stress is either because they have not had a lot of stress in their life, or because they've had so much of it that it has tipped their stress load over to the point where they can't be what people call strong and get themselves through it. It also helps for me that I have ADHD. So when stressful circumstances come, my ADHD gives me dopamine, which helps me handle the stressful situation, as long as it's a short stressful situation. So I can get through a heart attack or someone else's heart attack or something that lasts a day or two. I can get through that, no problem. I can get myself through the month of December. Although I feel stressed and I know I'm stressed, I can get myself through it, but it's not until after the event is over, where my brain has stopped giving me that dopamine to help me handle it, that I start to fall apart. And I'm not able to concentrate and I can't sleep. And all of those stress behaviors start to show in my behavior. And other people start to see that something is happening. So when it comes to focus, self-regulation looks at the social dimension, whereas self-control focuses solely on the individual. Self-regulation makes self-control possible, not the other way around. Children are much more able to control their behaviors if the environment is allowing them to. Another example of this is, the toddler room that I worked in had these beautiful big windows that let in not only the sun, but the heat. And it would get hot, like sitting still, singing songs and feeling the sweat dripping off your body. And let me tell you, when I get hot, I get nasty and I have no patience for anything. And guess what? So do toddlers. It was a big fight to get my boss to turn the air conditioning on in May. But we did, because the room was 82 degrees and it doesn't matter if it's May or not. The room is 82 degrees. And so nobody's regulated when the room is that hot and everyone is feeling that uncomfortable. And children want their blankies for comfort while they're sleeping, but they don't want their blankies because they're hot. And they want to be held and cuddled to sleep because that helps them to regulate, but they don't want us to touch them because they're hot. And for toddlers, they can't understand what's going on. Like, I want you to, but I don't want. It's very stressful for them. And man, did that ever make rest time difficult? And then back in our change area of the bathroom, there's no areas, there's no circulation. I call it the swamp. Oh, that was awful. I hated it. So we found other ways around it. The temperature. So I'm going to stop sharing again and go back to PowerPoint and share screen again. There we are. Okay. So my summary for this is that there is no such thing as a quick fix or a one-size-fits-all solution to building self-regulation in young children or in ourselves. It's a gradual, educational, and experiential process. Self-Reg can help us understand and respond to the roots of behavior, learning, motivation, and social problems in young children, which are almost always related to stress. No matter how many times I read the material that I have from the courses that I took, I always find something new. I always reset myself. I always go back and, oh, yep, I'm not doing that. And that's why I'm feeling stressed right now. So I encourage all of you to explore the site selfreg.ca. Read, learn, and digest all the information that Stuart is sharing. Talk about it with your coworkers and your friends. The material, if applied, can be life-changing, not just for the families you work for, but for yourself and your family. And I absolutely use this more at home than I even do at work. Yeah, my kids have a lot of stuff going on, and we have learned to be detectives, and now they are old enough to help me figure out what could be wrong. How does your body feel? Is it too cold? What's going on? And to really work with them. And now that I'm working more in a drop-in center with families, all of my families are Arabic speaking families, and I speak 10 words in Arabic. So it's hard for me to explain to them what is going on. However, I can demonstrate what is going on. And I do that a lot. When I see infants in their carrier that are crying and nobody's attending to them, I will go get them. When I see mom and child struggling over something, I'll look to mom to see if I can help, and I'll try and bring some Self-Reg information in there. And then also Stuart Shanker is hoping to get some materials translated. So if you see any materials on his website and you're interested in a translation of them, he would love to get help translating the material so that it can reach more people. He has lots and lots of free resources. He has YouTube videos that are amazing, but then he also has some really, really informative and very well structured courses. So I took the foundations course before the early childhood course was available. I was in his first cohort of that class. Now he has got early childhood, he's got classes for teachers, he's got classes for school administration. He has a lot. Those are paid for classes, but you do get a certification in the end. And you do get to keep your notes and whatnot, and they are so informative. Not trying to, sell anything for him or anything, but it just, it changed my life. So it's definitely something that I'm very passionate about. And then I can just, the next slide will come. There we go. So I wanted to thank Stuart Shanker and Stanley Greenspan, the two of them kind of started off working with children with autism with a hypothesis that children with autism experience stress more than other children. And then it became all children experience stress and can use these. Also, Sue Hopkins is the executive director of the Merit Center, which is his organization that does share this information. And thank you to all of you for letting me share this information with you. I really enjoyed it. And if any of you have any situations, any real life things that are happening that you would like to share and ask questions about, you're more than welcome to do it here. You can email me or Sydney, and she can pass it on to me, and we can definitely brainstorm and work through some things, or I can point you in the right direction on their website. But thank you very much.
Tina, thank you so much.
Welcome.
I have some thoughts, but does anybody else have any questions or comments they'd like to take this opportunity to ask of Tina? Feel free to unmute yourself or pop it in the chat. What I will say is there's no doubt you are a champion of self-regulation. And I really appreciated the stories and examples that you shared to really bring these concepts to life from the beautiful work that you're doing with children. And, for example, the examples of co-regulation, that was just really helpful to hear that. And how we do so much of that just naturally, but also that allows us then to be intentional and to think about, how do I offer that space of co-regulation? I think for me, where I would love to dive deeper at some point is the whole challenge sometimes of getting families on board. And the example that you shared with the twins was very compelling. And I have no doubt that, the engagement that you did with the parent was, like you said, full of kindness and respect. Yeah, you know, what can we do in those challenging situations when a family isn't perhaps you know, realizing the benefits of this kind of approach. So that I think would be great for further exploration.
Sure.
Mhm.
I could do that. I was going to share with all of you too that sometimes what calms people is stuff that you would never think of. So
Right.
we have a store here called Amazing Bins, and it's just they buy those mystery boxes from Amazon. They open them up and dump them into a container, and people come in and pick through them and buy the stuff. That's what they do. It's very unorganized. There's boxes everywhere. There's stuff everywhere. And I went in with a friend of mine, and I was super stressed out. And I was done shopping, but she was still shopping. So I decided, well, as long as I'm here, I'll look for stuff. And while I was looking for stuff, I was tossing the garbage on the floor and, oh, this is Halloween. I was putting that over there. And the next thing I know, I'm organizing this bin. And other people came and disorganized it. And I really didn't care. I don't work there. It's just something I'm doing to pass the time. And the next thing I knew, I was completely calm. So now when I get super stressed, I don't go to Amazing Bins. I go in my closet or my kids' playroom or whatever, and I organize it.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps them and it helps me. But never in a million years would I have thought that organizing mess would calm me down. I would have thought that would have just made me more mad. You're 9, 11, and 13. Why can't you clean up your own darn messes? Kind of thing. But I don't know why it works, but I know it works and I know that I need it. So I do it.
That's awesome.
It's bizarre.
That's awesome. And Kim has posted that diving deeper into self-regulation in older children and adults too would be, you know, again, for ourselves, and also maybe helping introduce, navigate, or encourage parents as well to be thinking about their own emotional regulation patterns. So Tina, this has really been fabulous. Thank you so much for your time and your knowledge and your passion. And I'm hoping we can have more conversations. I did put a link to a survey for this event. We, you know, ask for feedback on all of our learning events here. So if you have a few minutes to share your thoughts, that would be greatly appreciated. And I guess just want to check in one more time if anybody has any comments or questions before we say goodbye until our next time we come together.
And if anybody does speak other languages and you would like to work on some translation of some of those infographics I shared, Stuart would certainly appreciate your volunteer time, and it would help a lot of people.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And thanks to all of you who have joined us today. And I hope you have a lovely rest of the day and that we will have a chance to see each other again soon.
Great. Thank you. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.